For me, I think inspiration is still record shopping. Like it's it gives me a little bug because I'm finding something and I don't know what it is. So it's like that. Ooh, ooh, what is it? What is it? It's you're taking a chance. You're trying. It's kind of like the recording and finding stations back in the day. I think it's just the blindness of it and like going charity shops up and around here, or like I just went to Hong Kong and Vietnam recently, brought back a ton of records that I didn't get to listen to, but you pick them on covers and artwork and yeah, it's things like that that still excite me because I can't get excited by Splice and um, Instagram. so yeah, I guess so. How you source and find your music that inspires you and excites you, however it is, if it really means something to you, you're gonna get excited when you find it. And for me, as I said, still digging, still looking for records.
What record shops do you go to currently?
Ooh, ooh, ooh. I don't. Oh, I nearly said a really good one that I'm not going to say. Ah, no, but I'll say it. There's one in Crouch End called Little Record Shop. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the geezer had a lot of jungle and a lot of hardcore in. He doesn't like a haggle, my guy, but he's wicked. I like him. But I think last time I went in there, I spent like 200 quid. But we're talking like rare jungle and stuff that's like, woo, I don't really see that in the wild. And it's different to buying it on Discogs. You know that they're there, but it's like when you see a big pile of stuff and you're like, try and deal him up, get a bit off this, take in a few records to do a trade in. I like that. It's like it comes from the car boot era of buying records with my dad when I was little. And that was another thing, buying old DJs collections in Blackpool at car boot sales in the mid 90s to late 90s was another big thing as well. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I'd say
Right.
that one in Crouch End, little record shop. It's called My Little Record Shop. Um, where else? Obviously, Essex Road, the old flashback. That's good because they've got a cheap box outside. I still want to go through the cheap shit. I want the cheap stuff because I want to find, I was looking outside the boxes there the other day, quid ago. Daddy Freddy record with like loads of a cappella bits, music alive thing that I'd never seen. And they're quite prominent. I'd never seen this one. It had loads of little bits on it. I was like, yeah, boom, that's coming home. Straight in the Akai in the sampler. And I guess flashback also in Crouch End. And then going central. You've always got the Soho ones, haven't you? They're what is it? The orange one. I can never bloody remember the name. Seven Sisters and Reckless. That's it. Reckless has always got a healthy jungle and old school like selection in there, and yeah, they're decent prices as well. So I reckon between those, you got it covered in London, really. Yeah.
And is that what you're buying mainly? Kind of old stuff?
Yeah, I do pick up new jungle stuff as well, and it gets sent it, and I'll buy Tim Reaper stuff. He sends me the digital. I'll pick some of those up. Obviously, Sully and people like that. There's some bloody good stuff out there. Talented lads. But mainly like sample stuff because that. I mean, look at this. Like that's all like super super duper rare jungle, like the stupid stuff, and then you've got everything else over there in the racks. So it's like, you know, I've not completed it, but there's just a few that you need to like, a couple of 200 quid records that you're like, yeah, 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 do I need to buy it? I don't know. But yeah, sourcing samples of records. And since I've got that Mirage sampler, which is 8-bit, I mean, it's got me back into sampling. It's an absolute catalyst for sounds, not like even riffs or loops, just like, oh my God, because it can only sample about 4 or 5 seconds. So just getting really like, just stabs from anything. And then putting them
I've
in there and they sound bonkers. So yeah, inspired by the kind of kit that I'm using and the need and want and joy for record shopping. There you go.
Yeah, man. I mean, you got to keep inspired, haven't you? You got to keep it going.
That's why
And
the
this
studio's massive.
this is definitely something I want to have a chat about as well. I definitely want to have a chat about sampling, and I definitely want to have a chat about production and your approach to it and stuff like that. So put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Just to kind of go back to Pirate. Did you play on any? Did you play on any of those stations that you
No,
mentioned?
I wasn't old enough. So by the time I've come through it all, like from, 93 in school, getting all the tapes, 92 tapes, 93, 94. By the time I'm like, yes, I can get out and about and I've, got a shitty job and I've got a little bit of money. It's like everything's house music and garage. And I'm like, oh God, I've missed it all. So I was gutted. So I did, I started to play out at like little bars and clubs in Blackpool, but it was difficult then. It wasn't like now you can get the presents going online and get it popping and get an agent. It was like you better be sound and you better hang around with the older boys who want to maybe like actually hang around with you and let you play. And you better do something good, like a decent set that's gonna wow people for them to like get you back. So it was hard. And that was mainly when I got into hip hop music for years. So it kind of all stopped. I became a hip hop producer and worked with High Focus, and had success doing that. Um, then, like 2014, I just got a little bit bored of that, and I found the Amiga at home and went, "Ooh, might just have a little go and see if there's anything going on rave style at the minute." And then you start finding out people like Tim Reaper are making stuff, Phineas too, and there's a little scene starting to just get going. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna make some jungle," and then that's when I started doing my videos from there. So no, I didn't really get too much of a chance to play at that time, which was sad because I still had all the records and I loved them. But it went on to a little bit of house music, and everyone loved the trance in the late 1998, 99. We're going to Cream in Liverpool, and we got to see Sasha and Digweed, and it just got forgotten about, didn't it? Really,
Mm,
a little
yeah.
bit. It did. That was when you could, if you were still into it, you could buy all those really expensive records in Music Exchange for like 50p downstairs. All the old jungle was forgotten. It was just forgotten about.
So
I
then
think
what?
within reason, within reason. I won't say it was completely forgotten. I don't want to get myself in trouble. You know what I mean? No.
Oh no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No.
Okay, yeah, I mean, there's so many interesting things I want to ask you. Do you know what? What about this? What about this concept of revival? I suppose is a good place to start. So you
Mm.
said you kind of started again in 2014, having kind of witnessed the first sort of wave of all of that stuff.
I
Does
don't
what
like.
you're does what you're doing feel retro to you?
Not to me. It just feels like I'm using an authentic bit of kit. You know, Um, I try my utmost best. I don't want to be using a T99 stab. I don't want to be using the sound of music a cappella. I don't want to be using the stuff that everybody's used. So I have to make sure that I know pretty much everything that's ever come out to tiptoe around it and not use the same sounds. We can use the same apparatus in the experiment, like the Amiga and the Akai and the desk and an old Mirage, but we don't want to do the same experiment. So
Mm.
it can be, you know, I hate it. I fuck it. I don't care. I hate it when people go, "Oh, that sounds like a 93 tune in November on, the 19th at 6 o'clock." It's like, nah, it sounds like a hardcore tune that I made today. And I don't like it. I don't like it when it's kind of referred to as that because it will never grow. It's a pastiche of itself and it goes round and round. What I'm trying to do is get away from that and not use. I don't. It means so much to me that I don't want to just. I'm not using it as a throwaway sound. Like, oh, I'm going to put the big fucking Brazil stab in and go and like do it on a house thing with a little breakbeats. It means too much to me that I want to make authentic sounding music with not retro, older equipment, or just you don't even need to say older. It's just bits of equipment that you know work with the hardcore aesthetic, which is bedroom producer, bit punk, and yeah, I like shitty, rough sounding hardcore and jungle music. And it doesn't, and it's made now, and it's 2024 hardcore. So there you go. So no, I guess I don't.
Do you think the concept of retro even still exists in the same way? And I'll tell you what, I'm
It's everything, isn't it? It's
put that
films,
into context,
clothes,
mate.
style. Well,
exactly. Films, yeah,
I've let me.
aesthetics.
It's just all borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, and I don't know. Is it laziness? Is it have we run out of ideas? I don't know that, but there's new forms of music coming through. It's just I think everybody's quick flash in the pan needs a bit of it because we all want the attention on the Instagram and the likes and the followers, and look at someone like Fish Octagon, like dividing the room. Like, I think he's wicked. He's just a genuine person doing his music and stuff. But like, maybe that goes against what I even just said about, it just, we don't need to rehash everything, do we?
Mm,
And maybe, I am still making, I can say that, but I'm still making what people would deem as older style music, but I don't see it that way. So, that's a tough question.
it,
Oh, what do you think?
it
What do
is.
you think? Go on. What do you
Well,
think?
I ask you because I don't know.
Well,
I'm
that's you
very
because I don't know.
I'm very much in the same sort of boat as you, really. Particularly this project. I mean, this is obviously specifically a project that kind of looks back at the history, and I've made music for the project that is totally inspired by that sort of early to mid 90s period on pirate radio. Um, and I'm always having in the internal sort of dialogue of, is this fresh? Does it matter? Does it matter? Does it need to be fresh? I'm doing what I love doing. I'm doing what I've always loved doing.
What do you do it for? What do you do it for? What?
Hmm.
No, but seriously, like the process. Music is, when you're a music producer, like it is creation, meditation. It's the most important thing. It's like I have to do this every day.
Yeah,
It's a way that I communicate. Is a way that I express myself, and a way that I actually get into a state of flow. I don't even think like I don't. You don't think what anyone else is thinking when I'm making music. So I don't even think that. I don't. It sounds bad, but I don't care. So maybe that's why originally at first I was like, I'm just going to make some of this, just throw it out, boom, get it out there, and then people are like, oh, that's a bit different for now. But now does it feel a bit worn? Do you know what I mean? Is there another shift coming? Because I feel like there is. Maybe.
interesting. Yeah.
Mm, well, how much? I don't want to say how much. How much can we keep making jungle forever? I think we can. I probably don't put that in the thing, cut it out. But yeah, I mean, I love it. But yeah, um, as much as I do love doing it and the process, as I've just said, you to keep it going, that's like as I've said before, why I've got so many synths, something to inspire me. I started a modular synth collection as a new way of creating sounds. I've just got that new doubler thing where you can sing into a microphone and sing a melody, and it converts it into MIDI. A new old sampler. I'm doing some presets for Polyend on their new synth. It's all these little bits keep it exciting for me to keep going.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers the question, but it kind of
I
does.
suppose it's well, number one, it's a really hard question to answer,
Mm, mm.
particularly when put on the spot. So yeah, sorry about that.
That's what I
But
mean.
but yeah, no, it's just interesting hearing people talk about that and how they sort of approach it and how they feel about it. Be it that I come from that same sort of place.
Mm,
Um,
yeah,
it's a good one,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. Is it good? You got me thinking. Yeah. Am I going to be sitting it with all this equipment in the old people's home, still looping the Amen for the 8 millionth time and chopping it up and getting excited?
I wouldn't put it past you, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe. Uh,
Well, look,
ah,
let's talk about some of that stuff. Let's talk about sort of music production and equipment and so on.
mm,
Um, so, I mean, to start off, I suppose to anyone that I guess isn't number one sort of familiar with production and the gear itself, and then maybe even number two, kind of what your sort of ethos is. Just tell us about what you're doing, what you're using.
okay. The main thing for a moment was the Amiga computer, which is a late 80s and early 90s computer. I used an Amiga 1200. It was mainly used by people like Busy Bee, who was like the hub of all that sound. He worked with DJ Zinc, Red Alert, and Mike Slammer. Very raw, 8-bit sounding. And, for me, that was some of my favorite music. So that was, I love the Amiga, using Octamed. I also use Ableton as the main thing, which is on the Mac. And I've got a few old outboard samplers that were used back in the day, like the 1100. Liam from the Prodigy used to use that with a W30, very crisp. 950, classic bit of hip hop, also in like Shy Effects, hard drums, and also a few sound modules, cheesy 90s bits, Korg and Roland Romplers, which are synthesizers with sounds in, and mixing them all off a mixing desk, which is quite fun. And this whole process was how people made music in, early electronic days from mid 80s to like late 90s. So I'm just interested in that process. And that's why I have it all there. But it also adds for a great sound palette. And I can turn to any bit in the room and feel like I can get inspiration. Be a drum machine over here. I've got the 303 right in front of me. And I've got an old sampler and it's filled with sounds. So if I'm just feeling, I like to have it all around. I know you can do that in the computer, but I like the tangible format of it. And again, that's why I set up the modular thing as well. So various various sounds and samplers from mid 80s to kind of now. Just I'm all for like, different sound sources. I guess that's what the studio is made up of, yeah.
And what is it about that sonic quality, I suppose, that draws you to it? Or is it more, as you say, the sort of the workflow and the actual sort of process as opposed to the sonic quality as such?
No, something like the Mirage sampler, which was like made in 1984, right? It's like one of the first commercially available samplers after like the Fairlight, which no one could buy because they were like 90 grand. This thing's came out, and then Strings of Life was made with it. That thing. I've even got the preset in there. But when you sample into that, it sounds nothing like the record you're sampling. And the aliasing on the lower, it sounds like Instant Darkcore, 93, 92. Like, I'm telling you. So it gets me so excited to like, I've sat there all day just sampling it before going, yeah, just making new sounds so that it's got a little USB replacement on the floppy disk. So you can just keep loading and saving the sounds. So something like that, it can't be emulated. I know there's like the new Amiga emulator, Amigo, which is great, but that actual hands-on thing and creating my own sounds in there is just killer. I love that. And something like the Amiga, it's great for sequencing because that's where the trackers were. Again, you can get renoise, you can get emulators, but that has a little bit of rose tinted nostalgia for me because that is mine from when I was a kid. So I can still load up the songs I was making when I was like 12 and 13. And
Wow.
I remember using it. And it's that time where you're retaining information so quickly. So I was just like learning Optimed and sitting in my room, and my dad had come in and like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Yeah, look, I'm just learning how to do this." And he's like, "Oh, sick, nice." Because he was a musician as well. So a bit of nostalgia and a bit of how it sounds. Those two bits of kit in particular, very rough and very, early sounding rave music, which I don't think you can emulate really unless you're going to use some of that kit. And that music resonates with me so much and is the reason why I'm sat here with it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. There are certain bits of gear, and I've seen you using that Mirage thing on your Instagram, and I must admit I am fairly interested.
You getting
Um,
one again? They do a rack version. They do a rack version. Yeah.
what is it? 8-bit?
Yeah, 8-bit, 32 kilohertz. So I
Right.
call it the posh Amiga. So it's just a bit above, and it's
It sounds
rowdy.
horrible, doesn't it? It
Yeah,
sounds
But
Yeah.
as I said, inspiring me to make sound palettes and sample packs. So I've got my own sound again. So we're not doing the same thing. No T99 stamps. Not allowed.
All right. This is a sort of bit more of a techie question then.
We're gonna,
Do you, okay, so making a sound on the Mirage,
yeah,
sampling it, and what would
yeah.
you do then? Would you then kind of open it up into Ableton and sequence it and create patterns in Ableton?
It's just MIDI through. So I sample it in there, make it all in there, and then I've got the main MIDI keyboard plays it. So it'd be better if it was a rack version, but it was only 90 quid. So I was like, I'll have it. Whereas the rack ones are quite expensive. So
Yeah.
I just play it and then record it through the desk. I'll add some trashy effects, give it a little bit more flavor, and then boom. Then I could load another sound on it, layer it over,
Mm,
boom,
mm.
just keep sequencing it and just using, Ableton as a tape recorder.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely,
So
man.
yeah, I think that's the main process of it, really.
I mean, one of the biggest things I think for me for using a lot of this stuff, I don't have anywhere near as much as you do, but I have got few bits and bobs. It's like the limitation